Well, good evening and welcome to another episode of City Hall Live. I'm Darrell Justin Finizio, Mayor of the City of New London, and here again tonight for a live broadcast to take your calls, your questions, your concerns, comments about events in the City of New London. A lot has happened in the last several weeks since my last live show. I apologize for that. There was a lot of city business and also a lot of election business going on, so it kept me occupied, but we're back. And I look forward to hopefully taking some good calls tonight and engaging on the subjects that you want to talk about. This show is for you to be able to ask me those questions that appeal to you most and talk about the issues that you most want to talk about. But I do have a number of points that I brought tonight, so if we don't get any calls, I'll just work my way down the list. First, as always, I have to say thank you to the Bean and Leaf, Organic Fair Trade Coffee Shop, corner of Bank and Howard at the Columbus statue here in New London. Great, great place. Today it's actually an Irish breakfast tea. I thought I'd try something different than my usual Earl Grey or coffee, so I'll let the Bean know if it works out. But also, I have to say to all our veterans tonight, obviously Monday was Veterans Day. I want to say to every veteran, not just in New London, but anywhere where this program goes, thank you for your service. I mean, above all else, what veterans should hear more often than they do is thank you. It's a tremendous sacrifice made by them and their families, and we appreciate all that you do. Our community, our broader community here in the greater New London area, was recently rocked by a terrible tragedy when a Marine Corps veteran in Waterford committed suicide. I knew many people who knew this young man, and this tragedy has struck not only his family, but all of those who knew him very hard. The rate of suicide among our veterans is very high, as is the rate of homelessness, alcohol, and other substance abuse issues. It's ever so important that our community does more to serve our veterans population. That's why last week I appointed a New London resident to a newly created volunteer position of Veterans Liaison in the City of New London, and his name is David Pressler. He is also a Marine Corps veteran of both the First Persian Gulf War and also did a tour of duty in Iraq recently in the Second Iraq War. David is someone who spent a career in the military. He is now going back to school on his GI Bill and has been very liberal in talking about his own experiences coming home from war and reintegrating into the community, dealing with issues from mental health to how to navigate the complicated bureaucracy that provides for veterans benefits. So I think that this is a great appointment. It's one that was mandated that cities and towns do under a recently passed state law. I think it's appropriate to have, because while we have federal and state agencies that handle veterans affairs, it's really good to have a local point person that people can reach out to and talk to, hopefully being someone, in the case of Mr. Pressler, who really appreciates what they're going through and can speak to them in direct human terms. So I'm proud of that appointment, and I think he's off to a great start and doing a good job. But his phone number, which I've advertised on social media and was also in the New London Day, but I want to put it out there again. His phone number, city line number, is 860-857-0189. Again, 860-857-0189. His email is dpressler, spelled D-P-R-E-S-S-L-E-R, at ci.new-london.ct.us. This is the main city URL. This is also a cell number that he keeps with him, so whatever the time of day, feel free to email him, which he can access remotely, or call him directly. If you have other friends who you know need assistance, refer them as well. And if you didn't have time to write down the number, you can also get his contact information through the Office of Mayor Finizio on Facebook. But certainly this is a position that we're proud to have, and hopefully the role of the Veterans Liaison in the city can expand and grow as we can hopefully set up some good forums, programs, etc. for veterans in our community. We're proud to be a military community and glad to have Mr. Pressler on board helping out. The next item, obviously, that I wanted to bring up is we did have an election last week. As a Democrat in New London, I was very, very pleased with the results. Obviously, the Democratic Party in New London won 6 seats on the City Council and 6 seats on the Board of Education. And I think that this is owing to the tremendous amount of hard work that the members of the DTC did. I'm particularly proud of all the volunteers from my campaign of 2 years ago who helped out with our new council candidates and really got the word out and brought the vote out, and it led to a great result. I also congratulate Marty Olson, former ceremonial mayor of New London, who was also elected to the City Council. I look forward to working with him as well. I have written to all of the new members of the council, given them my personal cell number, and said that not only is my door open at City Hall, but I'm always on the other end of the phone if they call. And I think that we need to have a good open dialogue between all 7 members of the Board of Ed, all 7 members of the City Council, and the mayor to really start doing the work that we need to do to move the city forward. I will say that I believe that this new council is going to work well with the administration. This is not to say that they're going to do what the administration would like them to do. This is not to say that they're going to agree with me personally or with each other on any given issue. But what I do believe will happen is that this council is not interested in just playing politics for politics' sake. I don't think they're looking to create conflict for the sake of conflict or merely start the next mayoral election 2 years early. I think we have a group of people that wants to see results, that wants to put the partisanships and the bickering aside and work together in a mature way with a good open dialogue to reach consensus and move us forward, which we desperately need to do on a whole host of issues that are before us. So I'm very hopeful. I look forward to seeing the new board and the new council sworn in, and I look forward to working with each and every one of them. I think it's also important to note that this is a historic change in our city, as the Council and Board of Ed are the first majority-minority boards ever elected in the city. This is not merely a triumph for minority groups in the city, but really a triumph for all New Londoners. Because if you look at who's on our council, if you look at who's on our Board of Ed, we have long-serving public servants in the city like Peg Curtin, like Michael Passero, like Marty Olson, longtime city employees like Michael Tranquita, who have lived in New London all their lives. Yet we also have Latinos represented, who are now 28% of the population of New London, with a seat finally on the City Council, with 2 seats on the Board of Education, giving voice to so many in the city who felt that they didn't have a place at the table, that they weren't represented. We have people who have lived in New London forever, like Reverend Hyslop, who's a native, or we have people like Anthony Nolan, who, like myself, moved to New London, but have made New London as much a home as any place they've ever lived. So I'm very, very confident that whether you're a young person in the city or an older New Londoner, whether you're someone who's lived here all your life or moved here recently, whether you're a Republican or a Democrat or a Green Party member, all of those political persuasions are in the mix. Everyone has a seat at the table, and I'm very, very convinced that government policies will always be more fair and more equitable when the government really looks like the people that it serves. So I'm very, very hopeful, and there's a lot of work to do. So I'm anxious to see the new board and the new council sworn in. I think we're going to hit the ground running, and hopefully you're going to see a lot of significant forward momentum in the years ahead for New London. So I thank everyone who took the time to get out to vote, and I particularly thank all those who answered the call to support the Democratic team. I think it was a well-run campaign and a well-earned victory by the Democrats. The next thing going on in the city that I wanted to bring attention to is the Sandy Ground project at Riverside Park. I'm very grateful that the New London Day and other media outlets have been paying attention to this. This is really a tremendous example of what our community is all about. The Sandy Ground project is a project sponsored by firefighters associations that have raised money to build playscapes, playgrounds, in the states affected by Hurricane Sandy, but also honoring the memory of those young children who were lost at the Newtown Elementary School tragedy at Sandy Hook. And the City of New London was very pleased to be selected for one of these playscapes. The playscape will be dedicated in the memory of Emily Parker, a young girl who was lost very tragically at Newtown, and the site obviously was selected for Riverside Park. When it was initially being discussed for the City of New London, there were some who wanted to see it go at Ocean Beach. I heard a few other sites bantied about here and there. Ocean Beach seemed to be the main one, and I pushed very, very hard, as did others, that the selection be Riverside Park. We fought very hard 2 years ago to save Riverside Park as a recreational venue in the City of New London. It's our last major piece of open space that is right on our waterfront. It's also the only recreational venue owned by the City of New London north of the highways, where many New London residents do not have cars, do not have ready access to transportation, and can't afford the memberships or even the day pass costs to get into an Ocean Beach or other places. So to have a recreational facility for East New London was critical. To preserve our open space was critical, and that's why I worked so hard to save Riverside Park. But I said at the time that just saving this park is not enough. We have to prove that we're good stewards of the land, that we're truly going to utilize this great resource for the city, and we've been doing that. Riverside Park looks better now than it's looked by many people's recollection in decades. We've been doing a lot of volunteer effort there along with city public works efforts, and the park is getting more and more and more vibrant and cleared up from the underbrush that had existed there. And I check on the park frequently. I'll drive through at all different times of day to see, is it being used, is it being upkept? And every time I go in there, I see people in there using the park. Family having a picnic one day, people playing basketball almost every other time I'm driving through there. People walking their dogs very, very frequently through there. And I must say also being very good in cleaning up after their dogs, because I've seen that too. So people are using this facility. But one of the things that was brought up over the last 2 years is that we didn't have a playscape for the neighborhood children that live there. And there was discussion of, could we move an existing playscape, but the ones that would be moved, there was a significant cost involved. They also weren't up to good standards of quality. There was some rust, there was some this, there was some that. So this playscape that's being put in now is all brand new, and it's being put in by volunteers. And I want to thank all the volunteers who today were out there when the truck arrived to help unload and start the project of setting it up. It's a really big effort. It takes a lot of people, and I appreciate everyone who's helping out. I wanted to be there myself this morning, but I had to meet with the State Commissioner of Corrections about how sex offenders are being placed in local communities. Then I had to meet with the NAACP about a racial graffiti incident that occurred in our city, along with our police chief and public works director. And then I needed to meet with our pension committee that oversees our city pension fund. So these meetings were very important. They've been scheduled well in advance, and I couldn't make it up there to help out today, but I'm hoping to make it there tomorrow, and I'll definitely be there Sunday morning for the dedication. And the last thing I'll say, and then I'll take, I think we had a call. Oh no, I guess not. The other thing I will say is that one of the great things about this project is not just that it's a volunteer project, but if you look at the different people that are involved in it, you will see people who politically fight like cats and dogs almost on a daily basis. and yet they're coming together to volunteer their time out of the goodness of their hearts to make something good happen in New London. If we can capture that spirit that's going on in this Sandy Ground project and translate that into other things we have going on in the city, there's really nothing that we can't achieve. If we can look past some of our differences and see that we're all New Londoners, that we all want the city to improve, then I think a lot of possibilities open up to us that might not have been available before. So that's a great event going on in the city. I also mentioned earlier that there was a meeting today of the Pension Committee. This is a committee comprised of myself, the city treasurer, the finance director, and representatives of municipal employee unions that manage the city's pension funds. These are the funds that city employees contribute to the city-operated pension. The funds are then invested by the Pension Committee on their behalf, hopefully to make money, to grow that fund, and to then pay out the pensions when they come due. We are currently investing approximately $44 million in various investment portfolios in the marketplace to earn interest, to earn dividends and returns, to grow our pension fund. We're very, very lucky in the City of New London that among the many things that went wrong in the past in our finances, the depletion of our fund balance, the continual operation of the city government with very large deficits, the one thing that did not happen, thankfully did not happen, is they did not raid the pension funds. A lot of other cities, like Providence, Rhode Island being one, are in very dire financial straits, indeed going into or on the brink of bankruptcy because of the status of their pension funds. Our pension funds are very, very well funded, and our investment portfolios have been performing well. But when you invest $44 million, you should be conscious of what you're investing in. There may be some funds that produce a higher yield, but they may invest in products that you may not want your city funds going to, or may engage in unfair labor practices, or so on and so forth, and exploitation. Well, one thing that a lot of cities in the country have been attempting to do is remove their investment funds from fossil fuels and move them towards greener technologies and innovative emergent technologies in both the energy field and the healthcare field. Emergent technology investment portfolios perform at or near what traditional fossil fuel investment funds perform at. Again, in this regard, we were lucky in that only about 3%, our financial advisors assess today, of our pension funds were invested in fossil fuels. So I made a motion to the committee that I discussed a few months ago, and the motion was approved, to instruct our portfolio managers to remove and divest our $44 million from any investment in fossil fuels. This is an extremely, extremely important step that the city took to really put us on the forefront of being an environmentally conscious community while also appropriately investing and getting a good return on our pension funds. We join the cities of San Francisco, California, Santa Monica, California, Madison, Wisconsin, Seattle, Washington, and Ithaca, New York in taking this step. Other states are also considering taking similar steps with their state funds, and I know that Mayor-elect Bill de Blasio in New York, I believe, has also talked about doing this in New York City. So this puts New London really on the map. We are the first city and the first municipality in the state of Connecticut, and if anybody out there finds a reference that I'm wrong on that, please let me know. But earlier today, my assistant did some research, and it appears that we're the first municipality in the state of Connecticut to do this. So this really makes us a green leader in our state, and that's important on a number of levels. It's important because it's just the right thing to do for our environment, and I think everyone needs to take actions like this. But it also helps to market our city, because one of the things I talked about a lot when I ran for mayor was trying to attract green technology companies to New London. Well, one of the ways to do that is to demonstrate to these companies that we share their values, that when we put our money in the marketplace, we're putting the money into green technologies. We're not putting the money into fossil fuels. when we design roads, that we consider as part of that road design bike lanes and better sidewalks for walking to create a more walkable city. Not only is this a greener approach, it's a healthier approach, and it builds infrastructure, which is important to our long-term economic growth as well. In addition to these steps, we need to do more in the way of green initiatives. One being, we need to enhance our city recycling. Some of you may have noted that about 6 months ago, I believe, 6 to 9 months ago, there was an editorial in the New London Day sponsored by recent City Council candidate Lauren Natush and also Rob Perot's campaign manager Andre Bumgardner, who is a Republican and an avid Tom Foley fan. I will beg to disagree with him on that choice, but he's a very good young man and a great New Londoner. And they demonstrated that by enhancing our recycling, not only do we green our city, but we save money, potentially hundreds of thousands of dollars, because when we process all of our solid waste, if we're not recycling, it costs us more to process it. So these are ways that we can green our city while simultaneously growing our economy and saving money on our budget. So I think today was one of those things that we can do. It was a big step forward, and hopefully there'll be some more to come. The other thing that I had on my list here was, and I do hear the phone ringing, so I'll wait and see if there's a caller. And there is. So before I go to the next point, I'll take our first call. Caller 1, go ahead. You're on.
Hello, how you doing?
Hi, how are you tonight?
Good, good. Listen, I've been living in this town for 10 years, and we've been looking at that eyesore down there, that theater that's been sitting there for a long time. I know you guys tried to work something out earlier, and I think it was before your administration, to try to do something with selling it and doing. Now, I came up with a plan. I talked to you once before, about a year ago on the street. And how about the town just buy it? Let's turn it into an IMAX theater. Let's get with Project Learn and start showing some movies and things for the kids during the day. They can play a couple of movies at night for the public, and you'll have plenty of security down there because it's not far from the police department if you have to hire some at night. And turn it into something good and positive for the community, and that would help that area right there in that spot change immediately. If I had the money, I would have done it a long time ago. So, I mean, I just wanted to bring this to your attention again. I think you remember who I am. I talked to you down there. This is Mr. Moore over the airport. I'd like for us to do something with that. I think you can turn it into something positive. And once it starts to get use, especially from Project Learn and all the schools in this system with the IMAX and showing the different things, educational programs for the kids during the day up until about 5 o'clock or 3 o'clock if you want to do that, then start, show maybe 2 movies a night, and especially on the weekend. I think you could turn that whole area around right there almost immediately. I know parking would be an issue, but behind, on the backside, there is parking there, enough room for the buses to come in and out. We just have to work with some type of bus people or security people in order to get the kids in and off the buses safely. And I think it would be fun. Even put a small deli in there, even a Subway or something, so it would be the possibility of kids having lunch in there in the middle of the day when they come in to see a program. That's just a thought, and I've been throwing it out at people, but no one's taking an interest in doing anything. So, there it is again. I'm giving it to you and see what you can run with it.
Well, I got good and bad news for you. The good news is I agree with you. I think that having the Capitol Theater reopen would be fantastic, and having a movie house of some kind, no matter where it was in downtown, would be great because it's the one thing we're missing. We have the Hygienic Art Park, which can have, rock bands. We have the I Am Fest that takes place in part there. The Whaley Awards, things like that, and we have great art galleries and artist co-ops. You go up the top of State Street, you've got the Gard Arts Center, one of the best performing arts centers, in the region, and it's great. But a movie theater is one of the few things we're lacking, and what I always pictured would be something like the Angelica, which is on Houston Street in New York City, or if you go up to Providence, smaller theaters like the Cable Car that show those kinds of artistic movies that aren't shown at a Regal cinema. Some examples of movies like this would be the French film Amélie that was a huge hit in the United States. A lot of people saw it, but it was subtitled, so it didn't go to the mainline movies. Or the movie The Young Victoria, it showed at like the Madison Arts Cinema, and that was the only place. Or Brokeback Mountain with Heath Ledger and Jake Gyllenhaal that won all these Academy Awards, but never showed at a Regal 9. It only showed at these art house theaters. So a theater like that would kind of be right in keeping with the kinds of artistic things that we already have going on in New London. It would appeal to our community and it would work great. There is an investment group that currently owns the building, and they've been looking at turning the building into a luxury hotel with an art house movie theater on the first floor. This is the best, proposal I've seen for the building in a long time. The problem is that they're having trouble coming up with their financing. Now, if they can come up with the financing, they'll move forward with that project, and I think it'd be great. If they can't come up with the financing, well, they own it. They're private property owners, so as long as they keep paying the taxes on it, it's going to be in their name. It's not the city that owns it, unless we want to enforce some kind of blight ordinance and do something like that, or if they don't pay the taxes and we take it back like we did with the Lighthouse Inn. But here's the bad news, and here's the really, really bad news. I'd never seen the inside of that building. The only pictures I'd seen were from, I think, 1998 or 2000 when I was elected, and it looked like a theater. Everything was still there. There was, it was run down, but you think it could be put back together. Well, I guess the roof went at one point, and the city owned it at that point, so the city put a roof on it. But by the time they did, there was all sorts of internal damage. Animals got in there, water got in there, this, that, and the other thing. And it's been vacant since, I believe, 1978. So we're coming up on 35 years of vacancy. Well, if you go in that building now, sad to say, and I should probably get like the day.com to bring their videographer in and go in there, because there is nothing left. It is literally 4 empty walls and a sloping floor. There's no chairs, there's no movie boxes, there's nothing. It's in terrible, terrible shape, and the facade itself is starting to lean in, fall into the street. So it may be the case that if this current developer does not come up with the financing to do what he's planning to do with the building may be torn down, because what I was told, and I've been given different numbers on cost estimates, to actually refurbish the place as new, turn it back into a theater, is anywhere from $20 to $40 million. That's massive. I mean, nobody is going to really invest that much money in something that they're not going to get a return on it, unless it's like a Bill Gates that just wants to do it as a project. And believe me, if anybody out there has any connection with any foundation, Film Institute, Steven Spielberg, some movie buff who has millions and millions and wants to come save an old vaudeville movie theater, by all means, it'd be great. But for the city to do it, if we were to take the building over, I just do not believe that there would be any consensus in the community to spend that much money, which even if we bonded it would have to come out of taxpayer money to fix it, when that amount of money, somewhere in the 20 to 40 million range, is effectively what we're going to have to pay in debt service to fix all of our schools and go to an all-magnet school district. So, you're talking about a real significant buy-in that I don't think the public would be willing to make. I'm not even sure I would be willing to make it. I just don't think there's enough of a return. So it's sad that it's gotten to this point, but I think the lesson of the Capitol Theater is don't let any other buildings become the next Capitol Theater, and that is one of the principal reasons why I pushed against the advice of some to have the city buy the Lighthouse Inn, because the Lighthouse Inn has not been vacant that long. It's in very good shape, with anywhere from $25,000 to $150,000 worth of patchwork, grass cutting, cleaning, security, etc. for the building until we get it sold, you can basically patch up the Lighthouse Inn, which is what we're doing, and turn it over to an investor who then doesn't have to invest $20 million in the place, but only has to invest about $2 to $3 million in the place to get it up and running. That's viable, and we can save that building. But if we let the Lighthouse Inn sit for 10 more years, maybe even 5 more years, it's going to go the way of the Capitol Theater, and that would be a tragedy, because these kinds of buildings, these kinds of places, you can't fully replace them. They're one of a kinds, and the architecture there is one of a kind. So we may not be able to save the Capitol, but the Capitol is a glaring example to us of why we need to save the Lighthouse Inn and do it while we can. But you brought up in your question or your comment about parking in downtown, about how if we were to do that, or if we get the National Coast Guard Museum downtown, how are we going to handle this traffic flow and how are we going to handle this parking? Well, one of the things I think we've got to get into our minds in New London is the fact that while we're a small community, we're a city, and our downtown was not designed for cars. It's a railing port. The streets are all narrow, they're all close together. It was not designed with the thought of automobiles. So unless you're going to knock down whole streets worth of buildings to widen the street for parking, we're going to have to use our garages more and use metered parking in our municipal lots, because until we can get people to park in the garage, there's always going to be parking issues in downtown. And I know people years ago didn't want to park in the garage because it wasn't in good repair. They say, oh, there's people hanging out in there, oh, it smells like this or that. Well, that is not the case anymore. I used to park there to take the train to Boston when I worked up there. I saw all the renovations they did to it, the murals they put on it, the redesign of Parade Plaza. I mean, it's gorgeous. So, like any other city, if you want to go out to Providence at night, you're going to have to park in a garage. You want to go out to New Haven, you're going to have to park in a garage. I think we need to get people more in the mindset of utilizing our municipal garage to really address this issue overall. But to the first point, the Capitol, I hope this developer gets his financing, because if he doesn't, I think personally, I think the building will be torn down. So,
all right, well, thanks a lot.
Thank you. But believe me,
maybe we go ahead.
What I say is, if it's not the Capitol, though, you need to keep that idea alive. You need to keep telling people like me, city councilors this, tell developers this in town, because even if the Capitol isn't turned into a movie theater, there are other buildings in downtown that could very easily become a small art house movie theater. It doesn't have to be a big old theater. It can be, the first floor of one of these buildings that just has a small theater in the back. That's the Cable Car in Providence, and it is one of the most popular places on the east side of Providence. I mean, we put a place like that in downtown New London, the College kids will flock to it, the young artists and musicians downtown will flock to it. It'd really be a great thing. So the issue isn't dead, but the Capitol Theater may be.
Yeah, I understand, but I thought maybe an IMAX theater would generate capital for years, because the schools would use them. All the schools in the area would use them, and it would always have someone there every day, Monday through Friday, except during the summer months. But you could see some type of revenue being made with that. Then, of course, in the evening, switching to movies. And I understand what you were saying about the different type of movies. Even during the year, when it's Black History Month, when it's National Hispanic Month, whatever, you could have that nostalgia of playing the older movies, and people will show up for that. I mean, I would show up if you played Bill Cosby and Sidney Poitier movies during Black History Month in there. I would show up every night. I would support it. Yeah. So I was looking at a way for us to try to generate some revenue other than just through the school systems, but to use it. Because once we start using something like that, once people start using it, it will not go away. And hopefully that would help generate even more business downtown. We just need to, there's a couple more buildings down there that you have to get some renovation into, and New London takes off. And it's just a matter of time. So I know that some people are strapped for cash, and some of those don't want to see anything happen until someone else invests money. But New London is on the verge of taking off. We just have to have the right things to happen at the right time. And we're on the map. People say, okay, instead of going from New York to Boston, I'm going to stop in New London, or Boston to New York. I'm going to stop in New London and spend a day or two. And that's when it picks up. And things like that will help this city. We have a good reputation. there used to be a bad reputation about New London. I don't see it anymore. I see a lot of good things happening out of New London, and people start taking advantage of that. That's what we need to do.
You're right, and I'll tell you, actually, quite the converse. I hear more negative now about New London from New Londoners than from people from outside New London. You know, a lot of people in New London will still, be saying, 10 years ago this happened, 15 years ago this happened, or I still don't like this, or I still don't like that. But in terms of like the reputation that New London is getting outside, of New London, in the Hartford area, in the Providence area, I mean, we're being featured on the front page of the Hartford Courant. We're being featured on the front page of the Providence Journal Sunday edition as, oh my God, you got to go check out New London. This is where stuff's happening. And if anybody went to the last food stroll, it was one of the busiest ones we've ever had. And most of the people there were there for the first time. They said, man, I read about you in the Boston Globe online, and I had to come check it out. So New London's reputation is really taking off, and the city itself has made a lot of improvements in recent years, and I think we've got a lot going for us now. So I agree with you. We need to examine stuff like this, but the amount of money it would take to do an IMAX project or something, if it's not private funds, if it was going to be the government doing it, I'll make a deal with you. If you get a city council to approve it, I'll sign it, but I think it's going to be a hard sell for you.
Yeah, I understand. Well, I'm not going to trap any more of your time. I have plenty of ideas, and I can think of things to do. I do love New London, and I'm not even from here. I'm from South Carolina. But, I love the hygienic. I got to actually see Bernie Worrell over there, and I thought that was the greatest thing that could happen for New London, and people missed it. Things like that have been going on for the last year or two, and we're starting to get back to that. When I first came here, there were shows at the LNG, which were unbelievable, and now we're seeing them at the hygienic. They're in competition with the casinos. That makes
I had someone come to me and say, I flew in from L.A. for the Whaley Awards because I hear New London's the place to go for independent rock. LA, somebody who works in the industry in LA flying to New London for our independent music awards night because this is the place to come check out the cutting edge stuff. It's really amazing, and there's a lot of positive stuff out there, and I think it will grow. And we'd like to do it all overnight. It's going to take a lot longer than that, but if we just keep at it, it's happening. It's already happening, and it's going to continue to happen. But I'll tell you, I do have another call, so I'll let you go and get that caller in. But thank you very much, and appreciate you watching the show.
You're doing a good job, and keep it up. And those who are from New London who keep wanting to badmouth their own city, they need to take a look at themselves in the mirror.
Well,
they really do.
All right, thank you for the call.
Take it easy. Bye.
All right, next caller. Go ahead. You're on the air. Thanks for waiting.
Hi. I'm Dennis. Are you talking to me?
Yeah. Hello. Good evening.
Okay. I hear you. Look, I moved back to New London about 5 months ago. I love the city. I love the gay community. I love the whole atmosphere of everything that's going around here, except for the criminal activity. I got mugged about 2 months after I was here.
Really?
And last night, there are police with AK-47s running by my house. What is going on with all the criminal activity? The police force they do what they can, but they're not getting the people off of the street. There are so many people begging, so many prostitutes. I don't understand what's going on here.
Well, first let me ask you, sir, did you report this mugging incident to the police?
Yes, I did.
Okay.
They were there within 7 minutes. I have no problem with the police, but the thing is that there's so many people out there that are thriving off of the tourists and the other people in the community. There's too many vagrants. There's too many panhandlers. I believe the halfway houses, letting people out onto the street because they screwed up in the halfway houses, that they stay in the area. And they just panhandle and they harass people, and I just don't understand what's going on.
Well, I can tell you, sir, first, I'm deeply sorry that that happened to you. That shouldn't happen to anyone in our community. It's not tolerable, and I'm sorry that those experiences have not been good. What I'll say is that some of the issues you're describing have been going on in New London for a very, very, very long time, and we have been doing a lot to cut back on it. I don't know exactly when, if you say you moved in 5 months ago or 6 months ago, whether you were here when we had a major heroin and cocaine interdiction that started with the New London Police Department and spread to involve state police, Homeland Security, and FBI, but we took out about 90% of the heroin and cocaine traffic, not just from New London, but from the whole region, and made over 70 arrests.
I can walk out of my house right now, go across the street and buy crack.
Mm-hmm.
I can go down to Bank Street and have people coming up to me asking me if I'm straight. And then if I say I'm not straight, then they say, "What can I get for you?"
Well, I would encourage anyone that happens to, in any regard, to call our police department. We have anonymous tip lines, and give a description and a place and a location where this is occurring so that we can, respond appropriately. What I would also say is that one of the things that we hope to have in place by the end of June, I just got the final timeline on it, on Tuesday of this week, yesterday, to install surveillance cameras, lighting, and anti-loitering signage starting throughout our downtown and then expanding throughout the city over the next year. I think that'll have a huge effect on the issues that you're talking about when it comes to being approached on the street, panhandling, etc. Because if people know that it's lit up like a Christmas tree and you're on candid camera all the time, I think that will change. But I will tell you, I've been, in New London on a routine basis since 2005, moved to the Waterford-New London line in 2008 and into the city in 2010, and I'm downtown all the time, and I can tell you that in the last 8 years, those types of things that you're seeing are probably better now and less of it now than there's been in the last 8 years, and our actual crime numbers, our FBI, index for the city is at its lowest point in that time period. Now, this does not mean that if you get mugged, whether you're the only person in town that got mugged or whether you're one of 100 people that get mugged, if you got mugged, it's unacceptable and it's wrong and that happened. If you're getting approached by people inappropriately, that's wrong and it needs to stop. But I do think that we're headed in the right direction on that front. I mean, the things you're describing are nothing new for the city. 10 years ago, 20 years ago, it was much, much worse. You wouldn't go to Bank Street. Nowadays, I don't see as much of that kind of stuff as I saw even just a couple of years ago. And I think that with the things we're doing, not only the big things like the big heroin, cocaine interdiction, but also just with the lighting, with the surveillance, that we'll be able to drive it out more and more and more. But a bigger problem, one that you bring up, is the location of all the social service agencies. And that's not something we change overnight. But I think that today, if you look at the New London Day, I think a good development is that the Homeless Hospitality Center, which is a good organization, and I support the work they do, but they moved out of the downtown area. The shelter moved out of St. James Church and moved up to the former Greek church up closer to Hodges Square.
You're talking 2 streets away.
But it has a huge effect on...
But it doesn't have any effect because they still roam around everywhere.
Well, we still have our soup kitchen, our breakfast pantry, and all these other social service agencies located in the downtown area. But over time, these organizations need to regionalize and or be moved out of our main commercial areas. Otherwise, you're going to perpetually have that issue. And I think that we're in the process of doing that, and that we need to continue to do that to make an impact and to make some positive change.
So why were there police running all around my house last night with guns drawn?
Well, if you want to, I mean, because I'm on a public television show, I don't want to, go into detail about anything, but if you want to contact me through my city email and tell me...
Well, why cannot the public know?
Oh, no, I'm happy. I just don't want to talk about...
This is public television. This is public television. This is our city of New London.
Well, I will tell you off the bat, I would have to check on it because I did not get any reports of a criminal incident of that kind. And when you reference AK-47s, the police do not use AK-47s, so I don't know what you're talking about there. But if you give me your address, what is your address, sir?
Well, my address doesn't matter.
Well, it does, because otherwise I can't ascertain what exactly happened or didn't happen. That's why I would tell you to send me an email, because if you send me an email and you say the person across the street is selling crack, and you say I can go across the street and buy crack, if you email me confidentially and tell me your address, I'll make sure we check that house out, and if they're selling crack, we'll arrest them. But I don't want to say on the air what your address is or what the address of that house is, because the people in that house might hear me say it, and then they might come to your house, and that's not a situation that you want. I mean, I'm talking about effective law enforcement, and if you know that there are places that bad things are happening, please let the police know or let me know. The only reason why I wouldn't want to talk about those addresses, dates, times, etc. on the air is I don't want to tip off the criminals. I want to make sure that we get them off the street, and I'm more than willing to work with you to make that happen. There's absolutely zero amount of concealing from the public the discussion of what these issues are. We know they exist, and we need to confront them. And I think we've been doing it, but we need to do more. But if there's specific complaints of what happened on my street on this night, or what's going on in this house over there, I would need to know where you are to get a sense of that. And I wouldn't want information getting to the wrong people that you were making that report, which is why I wouldn't have you on the air give your name, why I don't think it's smart to give your address. But without those things, I won't be able to find out exactly what happened and get you a report on it. All I can say is I didn't receive a call last night about any specific incident. I did see on Facebook today some people were saying that down by the Bean and Leaf that people were running around with guns drawn, the police had guns drawn. I had not been called on it. I called the police chief and said, what happened? Police chief looked into it, said, the chief said I hadn't heard, because she had been in a meeting. She called me right back and said, no, there was a report that somebody had a gun, turned out not to be true, it wasn't a major incident. But obviously, if you see police responding or you see guns drawn, you think, oh my God, what's going on? Sometimes it's something significant. Sometimes they're just doing that as a precaution because a report went out that somebody was armed. But just like today, it turned out, no, that wasn't the case. I would still rather have the police take the appropriate protections, the appropriate actions to protect themselves and to protect others. And if that means drawing their weapons, that means drawing their weapons. But that doesn't necessarily mean that the reports were accurate or not accurate. So before I comment on the specific incident that you're referencing, I would need to know all those details. And the safest, best way for you to get them to me would be to send me a direct email, and then I would be happy to respond to you and get you every bit of information about it. And any of it that's publicly releasable, I'm happy to release publicly as well.
Okay.
All right.
Okay.
Well, thank you, and please contact me, and believe me, and to anyone else out there listening, if anyone comes up to you and offers to sell you drugs, if you know houses where things aren't going right, that there's something going on, call us. This really is anonymous. I monitor it, and I can assure everybody listening that any tips we receive are kept as confidential, and many of these tips have helped us. They've helped us bust small-time drug dealers, and some of these tips were part of a larger drug bust. They help us get violent people off the street. And yeah, we're a city. We have a diverse community economically, a diverse community where there are a lot of people who live on the edges of our society. And when you're down and out, some people turn to drugs, some people turn to violence. It happens in cities, but we want it to happen as little as possible. When it happens, we want to identify those responsible and hold them accountable. So the best way we can do that is with good cooperation from the public, and I would encourage all members of the public to report anything. If you see something, say something. It's the only way we're going to get rid of these problems once and for all. So I thank the caller, and I'll go back to the list here. The next thing I was going to bring up is that there's something I have to clarify. It's come up on the show a number of times related to how we handle animal control. I let everyone know that we're fixing our existing dog pound, which is up in Bates Woods, and that should be reopened between Thanksgiving and Christmas. The original date was Thanksgiving. They said it might take an extra week or so. But when that's reopened, we won't have to use any of our temporary facilities anymore, and we'll be able to also continue work towards a regional no-kill shelter. But that is the clarifying point. The New London Day got it wrong, so naughty, naughty Kathleen Edgecombe, but they quoted me as saying that I hoped our dog pound would reopen as a no-kill facility. That is not possible. We simply don't have the capacity to be a no-kill shelter on our own. What I said was I hope to have our facility reopened so that we can better facilitate animal control and adoptions, but that we want to continue working towards a regional shelter that hopefully could be a no-kill shelter, similar to the regional shelter I worked on in Westerly, the SUFA facility, or Stand Up for Animals, and that is still a goal that we have, and hopefully one that we can work towards in the near future. Those conversations are still ongoing, and I'm hopeful that they will lead to a productive result down the road. But that is several years down the road. The animal shelter that we're opening should be open soon. This will be a great help to us, a great assistance to us, but I need to clarify for anyone who got the wrong message that this is not a no-kill facility. It cannot be a no-kill facility. And also, I want to say to everybody out there, I know that politics is a rough business. I signed up for the rough job. I don't mind what anyone has to say about me. And I see the posts where they'll post a dog and say, you know, this is a dog the mayor murdered today. Well, if it were up to me, every dog, every cat, every animal would be saved. Animal rights, to me, are very important. I'm a dog owner and an animal lover. But what I beg of you, and I sincerely beg of each and every one of you, particularly those who routinely want to criticize me or my administration, God bless you, God love you, say whatever it is you want to say about me, but please do not harass our animal control officers. Tanya and Mike are doing the best job possible under very difficult circumstances, with a facility that was weak and with a regional facility that's inadequate. Please give them the benefit of the doubt and thank them for their service.